Welcome to the Fenced In Podcast with Jennifer Rogers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share for more content like this. Today, we are going to be interviewing Dr. Alap Shah, and he has been wrongfully convicted and forced to serve time for conspiracy to defraud the government. And without further ado, Dr. Shah.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. So tell us who you are.
All right. And that was a great intro, by the way. And I
Thank you.
appreciate the comments. Of course, when we say wrongfully convicted, I was convicted. So I think wrongful decisions from my part created the conviction.
Yeah.
We can get into all that. So my name is Dr. Alap Shah. I'm a foot and ankle surgeon and a physician currently. I had lost my license for a little while going through this process, but I got it back since. And let's see, I saw my first patient at the age of 27 years old.
Okay.
In a town called Columbus, Georgia.
Okay.
And basically I was recruited straight out of residency and joined a practice and eventually became a partner 3 years later. I started doing a lot of wound care, started doing a lot of different specialties within my field, especially with diabetics and whatnot, and became more sort of an expert. And I developed a niche in my community, but more importantly in the academics as well. So I had a lot of companies come to my front door and ask me if they would help develop product and speak to other physicians, other potential customers or patients and that type of thing. And they would hire me as a consultant. So I ended up becoming a consultant for a lot of these pharmaceutical companies, and that so began my career and how things went.
Okay.
So if we want, we can get into that process step by step or...
Yeah. So tell me about what your childhood was like. Like, how did you grow up?
Okay, great. Good question. A traditional Indian family.
Okay.
My parents were first generation, or I'm a first generation born American.
Okay.
Came from India, Chicago, Illinois. Kind of traveled around. My dad was an electrical engineer. My mom kind of took some odd and end jobs, but really just was sort of a stay-at-home mom. We went from there to California, from Chicago to California, then eventually in Texas, where I graduated from UT Austin. Did most of my underschooling in Texas, and eventually went to New York for med school and residency.
Okay.
But the upbringing, good family. I mean, I can't ever say we were ever denied anything.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were hardworking. My dad was very hardworking, and I have a younger brother, so it was just the two of us. But for the most part, there was nothing abnormal about my childhood. There was nothing where I felt like, okay, maybe this was the cause or that was the reason,
Mm-hmm.
this and that one not. No, it was just I was just a happy-go-lucky kid with a brother and a good family, a middle-class family.
Mm-hmm.
We lived in a nice home, and I went to school, went to magnet school, had all the privileges of most kids, probably more than most kids.
Mm-hmm.
The upbringing was great. So I can't complain about that at all.
So at what point did you say, I want to become a doctor?
Going to UT Austin, I was looking for a part-time job.
Okay.
Beer money.
Yes.
Call it what you want.
Yes.
Entertainment money, whatever. And so there was a podiatrist a foot and ankle surgeon that was looking to hire a front desk receptionist.
Okay.
And he was just wanting somebody to come on Saturday mornings. And he didn't want to hire somebody full-time for the full week. And that was a perfect job for me. So I started really helping out with some of the things that he was doing with patients. And he got me really involved because he saw my interest in it. Mm-hmm. And that so began and sparked that interest of me wanting to get into medicine. And from there, I just decided to apply. I took a pre-med major at UT Austin, and then I applied to med school afterwards.
Okay. So your path was just clear and straight.
You know, in culturally speaking, in an Indian family, especially a traditional Indian family, we've been sort of genetically coded to be in a profession, whether it's engineer, doctor, lawyer, sort of some of these types of professions. Mm-hmm. Education is pushed very heavily.
Yeah.
Deviating from that is probably frowned upon.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of knew I was going to go in that direction. Maybe going back and looking back, would I've loved to gone into a different field? Certainly I had different interests, right? But I was kind of pushed in that direction, and then I eventually just accepted it. Mm-hmm. And I loved medicine, and I loved science. Most of the science classes I took in college, I really was out of passion, not just because I had to. And so, yeah, I kind of just was programmed to go in that direction. And so it just sort of one step led to the next. And then there you have it.
There you have it. So you graduate, You become this doctor,
Right.
and now you're working as a consultant. Talk me through that time frame. Like, what was that like? I'm sure it was exciting because, like, man, my career's taken off. I've got all these opportunities. Let's talk about that time.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So started practicing at the age of 27 and I saw my first patient. And within about 2-3 years, I started going into the wound care centers. And really, as I was saying earlier, I had a big passion for limb salvage, saving people's legs.
Okay.
Diabetics lose their feet a lot. They lose their legs a lot. And I just felt like this is something that I was good at. I had sort of a knack for trying to suggest certain treatment plans for a patient that helped them save their leg. And as I started doing more and more of that, I started getting more into the technology behind it and learning the science behind it and learning about some of these products. So I started consulting for 2 wound care centers, and ultimately a lot of these companies that develop these products came and approached me. And so when they approach a doctor to come sponsor or talk about their product, it's all about hiring you as a consultant, going to a conference, speaking to other doctors or even students, or going to a doctor's office and talking to them, or even just speaking in general to the company's other staff members and teaching them.
Okay.
And you get hired for these things, and you travel the world. I mean, I traveled everywhere from domestically, everywhere I could possibly go, but internationally as well. I mean, as far as Dubai and Russia and some different other countries that I've been to speak about these products, because it's such a new technology that the United States was developing, and eventually it was going to be carried over internationally. So getting hired for those things was quite a high for me, because it being at such a young age, like you said, I was developing my resume and padding my career, or padding my resume, developing my career, I should say, and eventually getting more and more in depth into that. And more companies started coming to you and saying, hey, we noticed you spoke at this. We'd like for you to come and look at our product. And so it's not uncommon but for doctors to get approached by multiple surgical or pharmaceutical companies to speak, especially when they're good at something about it.
Right.
And because they know that they have a lot of influence. You know how nowadays influencers, it's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah.
So doctors back in the day for speaking, that's kind of what it was. It was more of a in-person influencing. So they know that if somebody who has experience in this and can talk about it, has good outcomes, can go to a conference, speak to other professionals, other students, and hopefully convince them to try their product and maybe become a user.
Okay.
So they hired you, they paid you, and for all your travel expenses, they gave you a stipend or an honorarium, and you just got hired to go when you could. So that started my career of joining multiple consulting firms or companies, I should say. I did about 3 or 4 on a very steady basis. I mean, I'd say I was traveling at least 2 times a month during the early part of that career. From ages, I want to say about 29 till about 33, I was doing quite a bit of it. And I was getting a lot of training, a lot of experience. Meantime, I was also doing the same thing in my hometown. I mean, I was helping patients. I was learning more about it. I was developing product. So my name was getting out there as being well known in the wound care field. And so you get patients that come in and come and see you because they want to save their leg, or they want to save their foot or their toe. So that recognition started opening doors for a lot of other companies. So it was exciting. It was nice to get your name to it, and it was nice to have these opportunities. Of course, you were getting paid, so financially you were getting rewarded for it.
Right.
So it was an exciting time during that time. And that kind of went on for about a good, I want to say about 7 to 9 years or so, just on and back and forth, just doing some different things with different companies. Some relationships would last, some would not. Some continued the whole time before we really got into the thick of what we're going to get into. Yeah.
So at what point did the trouble show its head?
So let's see. I want to say about 2013, I spoke at the GPMA, which is the Georgia Medical Conference that my industry has every year in Atlanta. And there was a company there that saw me speak, and there was a dinner program that night. So we went to the dinner program, and the owner of the company was sitting right next to me. I didn't know who he was, but he introduced himself, and he said, "Hey, I heard you speak, and I am a owner of this company." He was a physician. And along with him and a business guy, they own this company, and they said, "We would love for you to come on board and talk about our product." So the product itself was called compound medication. It's developed by a custom pharmacy. So essentially, these custom pharmacies create drugs for things like joint pain, for nerve pain, different things that you might have, but you can't really get a prescription for. So the pharmacy would actually create it custom, and then they would be sent out to the patient. So this company was involved in that development. And they said, and they were asking me to speak about their product because they knew that I did a lot of wound care and arthritis and older people type of medicine, and they wanted to be able to get into. They wanted a piece of the pie, right? And so they said, is there any way you can get involved with us and speak about this to other doctors since you use so much of it, and then hopefully bring them on board with us? And I said, well, I'll be happy to. Let's meet up in a couple of weeks. We were at that dinner that time, so we really weren't talking a lot. In that sense, I was talking to other colleagues and stuff. I said, why don't you guys come to my office? I'll give you my address, my cell number. We can talk, and we can chat about it. I mean, I love the idea of getting all these things under my name because it just made me look like I was more and more approachable by other companies and doctors that are in that realm. Obviously, they love that because there's more opportunities down the road, especially when you're young, right? You're young. You're trying to get your career developed. You're hoping for bigger and better opportunities. So they approached me and I said, yes, why don't you come to my office? A week or two go by, and this is back again in 2013. They finally showed up. I want to say about 4 months later. Maybe a little bit less than that. But anyway, they came in. It was the business owner and the doctor, and they said, hey, this is what we got, and they presented their whole case. And they said, are you interested in wanting to come speak for us? We would pay you a flat fee, monthly fee, for you to come and speak. And you could travel to these conferences, speak to doctors, speak to other peers, speak to other patients. We'll set up some lunches for you. We'll set up some dinners, and which is not uncommon. This is what pharmaceutical companies do.
Okay.
They hire doctors to speak at a dinner. The doctor speaks. The doctors that are there eat, and then they learn about the product, and they have a good meal, fine wine and drink, and go home and whatever, right? So it's not uncommon for that to happen. Not as much now as it was in the old days, right? So I said, sure, this sounds like it's a great plan. Why don't you send me the contract? I'll look it over, and then we can talk about it, and we can move forward. So that was fine. Everything was great. They left. Didn't hear from them for about another month. Finally, an email comes across one day, and I get a text. Hey, we just shot you over a contract. Can you look it over? If this works for you, let's get started. Now we're heading towards the end of 13, going into 14. And I looked at the contract. So that's where the troubles began, really.
Okay.
The contract itself was probably about 26 to 30 pages.
Okay.
I read the first two. Most doctors are horrible business people.
Yeah.
The ones that are good. The ones that aren't, myself included, are doing it because they just feel like, okay, this is another piece of paper. I'm just going to sign it off and whatnot. I read the first page. There were some errors in the address. So I said, hey, this address is wrong. Can you correct it? I sent it back to them. Oh yeah, sorry, we made a mistake. We hired another doctor and we put his address by accident. We'll correct it, no problem. It comes back to me. I look at the first 2 or 3 pages. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and put my John Hancock on it. I didn't read the 26 pages, right? But again, that will come later on when we start talking specifically about the case. So I just signed off on it and sent it back, and then I said, all right, let me know when you want me to go, where you want me to go, and we can start setting up a program. And of course, I was already using their products. I mean, this was not uncommon. I was using about 6 or 7 different products. I should say there was about 6 or 7 companies that developed the same product. So I was kind of rotating through different ones, but I was already using theirs. And I had great success. So it was easy for me to talk about it. So I said, just let me know when we're ready to go. So this started in 2014. And we started doing some minor traveling. And they were paying me a monthly fee of $5,000. And for that, my job was to help develop product, go to these conferences, talk to doctors, have dinner programs when applicable, and see if there's any other doctors that might be willing to want to go ahead and try this and hopefully become a user as well. And that was the fee I was getting paid, $5,000. And then they would cover my reimbursements for expenses, travel, a flight, hotel, whatever the case may be, within reasonable means. And so we went to like 1 or 2 the first few months, and then it kind of just slowed down. But I made suggestions. I mean, these guys were paying me $5,000 a month, and I really wasn't doing a whole lot of work for it. I mean, other than writing their prescription, but I was writing for other companies as well. So they were part of that rotation. Really wasn't doing a whole lot of work for it. I said, hey, do you want me to speak at this conference? I'm going to be there for another engagement. I'll be happy to talk about your product, and we can set up a lunch or a dinner. And they would come back and say, well, we're a small company right now. We don't have the budget to sponsor that. We're just trying to get up and going. We don't think we can host a full lunch. And they're expensive. You know, when you go to a conference and you host a lunch, I mean, it's probably a few $1,000s. I mean, you're trying to get all the doctors to be in one room, and on top of that, pay for the lunch and then pay for the speaker. I mean, you're going to spend a lot of money. So they said, let's just start small. Let's go to these conferences. Please keep talking to your peers, and then maybe you can bring them on board, and we'll see where it goes from there. So I did that a few times. We did this on and off for about 8 months.
Okay.
So this whole time they're paying me $5,000 a month, nothing else. They're covering some of my travel expenses whenever I go, as long as I show that I've gone there, spoke to people. And this relationship between me and the company went on for about 9 months. And then finally, one day I get a text basically saying, hey, we have dissolved our relationship with the pharmacy that was developing our product. So we don't think this is going to go anywhere. It's pretty much going to fail. So we were going to go ahead and null the contract. And of course, at that point, I was like, all right, well, I don't feel like I did a lot for you, but
right.
If that's what is going to happen, so be it. By that time, like I mentioned earlier, I think I had made a total of about $55,000 through this whole process.
Okay.
So you can do the math as far as months, what it ultimately works down to. So we dissolved it, and that was probably, so we carried it all through 14, probably sometime, I want to say early part of 15.
Okay.
All right. And that was the end of it. And they called me 1 or 2 times after that to say, hey, we're getting involved in some physical therapy stuff. Do you want to be involved in on that? I wasn't interested, and we just kind of fell off. And didn't hear from them for a long time. Then come January of 2016, I get a knock on my front office. 2 investigators show up. Okay, one from the OIG and one from the post office general. Basically wanting to know what I knew about the company. And really coming in a friendly way, right? They're coming in, they're your buddies.
Yeah.
They want to talk to you. Hey, Dr. Shah, we saw you were working with these guys. Unfortunately, we know it didn't work out. We know they went out of business. They were paying you. But can you tell us more about what you did and how that relationship went? And do you have more information about the stuff like emails or documents that you can show to us with the company? And I'm thinking, so my first question was, do I need a lawyer? And he said, no, why? Why do you feel like you need a lawyer? I said, well, I don't know. I said, this is, I'm wondering what's going on here because you guys have kind of shown up at my door and you're asking me all these questions about the company and my relationship with them. And that's unusual, kind of like in that direction. They said, no, we're just trying to find out what's going on and with the company because we know that we're prescribing for federal insurance companies and they made a lot of money doing it. Then they went out of business and we're just kind of trying to figure out with all their other business relationships how it went south. So I provided them with all the information. I didn't have an attorney present. I answered all their questions. I gave him all the emails. About midway through that conversation, the whole meeting lasted about 3 hours. I had to shut my office down. Front staff's like, what's going on? What's going on? I had partners. I had 2 other partners. They're like, what's happening? I'm like, well, this is with the company that I worked for. Apparently something's going on. They're just asking me questions. Oh, okay, that's fine. Just handle it. No worries. So I'm sitting there talking to them. And of course, about 2 hours into it, you could feel the temperature just turn in the room, almost like pounding on the desk. Well, we know you're involved. We know that you're part of this scheme. Let me tell you what's going on. These guys are indicted. They apparently have been working out fake speaker agreements with other doctors, and these other doctors were getting paid for every prescription that they wrote. So basically, if a prescription, they call it adjudicated. What that means is when a prescription goes to an insurance like TRICARE, and TRICARE ends up coming back and paying for the prescription, these other doctors are getting paid a certain percentage for everything that prescription was paying.
A kickback.
A kickback.
Yes.
Correct. Otherwise known as kickback. So we know that you were just masking this whole speaking thing so you can get paid, but you were not really involved in speaking or teaching this and that, whatnot. And I said, I don't know what you've heard. Of course, I'm telling them this and that, whatnot. And they ended up serving me a target letter, okay, telling me I'm part of their investigation, that I should get an attorney, and they would be in touch. I mean, I gave them all the information. Like I said, once that temperature changed, I kind of just stopped talking, gave them what I had. I even communicated far enough to give them emails, any text messages that I had still remaining, any paperwork, any prescriptions, anything else that I still had laying there. Anyway, they left. And my next job at that point was, what am I going to do now? Of course, in the doctor's medical world, nobody teaches you this stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody, there's no course that you go through in school that says, hey, if you get indicted or if you're in any sort of trouble, this is what you got to do. Or be careful when you get into a business agreement because this could happen. There's no course like that.
And there should be. Agreed.
And so there was no course that taught me what my next steps were going to be. I knew medicine. I didn't know this.
Yeah.
So I call the only person that I know, which is my real estate attorney, because I need to call an attorney, and he's the only one that I knew. And he's like, oh, wait, this is way out of my wheelhouse. I'm going to have to make some calls, and I'll get back to you, which he did. I ended up with an attorney out of Atlanta, one of the attorneys who actually was involved in the. Do you remember the bomber during the Olympics? Richard.
Yes.
Yeah, I forget his last name. He was his attorney. He represented him. So I ended up getting with him as far as my initial attorney. Of course, first question was, do you have the money for the retainer? And then, this is how it goes. And I need you to come and see me and tell me what's going on. And we can talk about what the next steps are. Mm-hmm. So I ended up paying the retainer. I think at that point it was like $15,000, and going to Atlanta, telling him my whole case. And his first response was pulling out the book and looking at what could go wrong if this goes south. Basically, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
0 to 6 months, 6 months to a year, blah, blah, blah. How much fines? He's like, his mentality was let's spill out the worst, and then we'll kind of work our way backwards from there. So of course, me again being this deer in headlights, I was just told that you're looking at possibly a year's worth of jail time, if not more, and this and that, whatnot. This is a federal crime. This is not a state, and because it involves insurance with the government, it puts you in a different tier. It's a lot more. The penalties are a lot worse. And of course, we're talking through all this. I'm sweating bullets, and I'm just like, okay, well, what are my next steps? He said, well, nothing. We communicate with the prosecutor, and we just kind of figure out where we go from here. So for the next 3 months, there was back and forth communication between my attorney and the prosecutor, and just trying to figure out what my involvement in this was. And I could tell that the prosecutor really didn't have a full case yet. I mean, he was just still trying to put the bits and pieces together. In the meantime, I had heard through him, the prosecutor, that the other people that were in this case all pled guilty.
Oh, wow.
They all pled to the fact that they received funds for writing prescriptions in the tune of that there was about 20 doctors in this circle, maybe a little less than that, but somewhere in that. And all these doctors were colleagues of the business owner. So they're all friends, right? So they all kind of knew each other, let's put it that way, either through work relationships or through hometown relationships or through knowing each other from college or high school or med school, whatever the case may be. I was sort of the outlier.
Yeah.
Okay. So they kept on pushing and pushing. What is Shah's involvement? What is Shah's involvement to my attorney? And of course, we're telling him, look, this is what he did. He told you what he did. And we told you what he got paid. He did not get paid to write any prescriptions. I mean, what else do you want? Well, we still don't feel that. We still feel like it's a sham. It's all cover.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to you. And that was it.
So what is your thought process? Are you emotionally in this time period? Are you still working, or you're not working at all and you're just waiting?
Yeah, no, I'm working because at this point I had no restrictions.
Yeah.
And I still had to make a living, right? And still had a family to support. I was still kind of doing my thing. I was still a professional in the community. This was not out in the public, so there was no need to hide for it.
Because you weren't indicted yet.
I wasn't indicted.
This was investigated.
Yeah, it was just, this was pretty much within the walls of my office that I was talking to these investigators. My partners, I had 2 partners, I told them what happened, and they were all, since nothing really ended up coming out of it, meaning that day, they're like, okay, whatever, that's fine. The staff was just like, oh, okay, just somebody asking Shah about stuff. Didn't really know. So there's really no, I wasn't thinking, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Once my attorney said, well, if they come back to us, then we'll have to make next steps, next moves. But for now, just keep living your life. I mean, there's nothing you can really do.
Yeah.
You've not been indicted, and nothing is, preeminent. No one's coming at this point. You just got to wait till the other foot maybe hits the ground, and we'll see where it goes from there. It falls. And so that was 2016 of January. Like I said, 3 or 4 months go by with communication to the prosecutor. Nothing came out of it. By that summer, I was still freaking out because it was still, 6 months in and still fresh in my head. So I told my attorney, I said, what do I need to do? Do I need to go approach this prosecutor and say, hey, is this case dropped? He's like, I wouldn't poke a bear.
Yeah.
He's like, and I don't know these things, right? He goes, I would not poke a bear. If he has not got back to us, let it be. Live your life. We'll see where it goes. And so I did. And so I kept working in 16, kept working in 17. Then in 18, about 6 months in. Okay. So again, nothing. I'd have communication with my attorneys. Hey, or my attorney, excuse me. Hey, is there anything else happening? No, haven't heard anything. You should be good. Okay. By a year out, they're like, hey, I wouldn't even worry about it. You're such a low man on this totem pole. They got what they needed. Mm-hmm. They got the lion's share. You probably don't need to worry about this. Come June of 2018, I'm at a dinner meeting, at a pharmaceutical drug rep dinner meeting, not mine, but somebody else is hosting it. And I see my phone, and it's my attorney. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? Do I owe him a bill?
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't take it because it was during the meeting. And it went to voicemail. And as soon as I had a break, I went out and I heard the voicemail. And my attorney's like, hey, call me right away. We need to talk. That's never good.
Yeah.
And this was like at 7 o'clock at night. And so I call him and he's like, you're getting indicted.
Ugh.
And it's a federal indictment for conspiracy. You know, he read that. He told me the charges. He said, I need you to be in Miami. I think that was a Thursday. He said, I need you to be in Miami on Tuesday for the arraignment.
Wow.
And it's Miami Federal Court, Southern District of Florida.
Why in Miami?
So the prosecutor was out of Miami.
Okay.
So the case was ran there, and the compounding pharmacy was also out of Florida.
Okay, that's why. Okay.
Yeah. So most of the players in this were out of that area.
Okay.
So that's where the case kind of was born from. And so, so I literally 4 days later, we were on a plane headed to Miami.
How did you deliver that news to your family, and what was their reaction?
So it's like this. It's like nobody in our family's really got in any sort of trouble.
Yeah.
So nobody knows what to expect, myself included. So at that time, we're still thinking, okay, we can talk our way through this. Maybe there's a way to figure this out. Yeah, we have to. This unfortunate inconvenience of going to Miami, and it's all part of the process. But we'll get through it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know the levity of the situation yet. We kind of probably downplayed it a little bit.
Yeah.
More like, let's just, of course, you never want to hear indictment, and then you start Googling and start seeing different things. And of course, they're like, well, what did you do? I mean, of course, they're automatically, did you do this on purpose? Your parents, your family, and you feel like you're letting a lot of people down. But you delivered it within a small circle because you were still small circle. It had not made it public yet.
Yeah.
It had not been in the news yet.
Yeah.
So the arraignment, and I told them, and we all went down to Miami 4 days later, and that was an experience I never hope anybody ever has to go through. Going to a federal court system, the way they book you, chain you,
Yeah.
and you're on one side of the building, and they take you underground,
Yeah.
almost like a chain gang,
Yeah.
to the other side where the courtrooms are, where they do the arraignments. It was pretty rough, and they kept you in the holding area for hours on end. Of course,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure this is not new for people who've gone through something like this, but for somebody who's not expecting this, it's just completely an experience I hope nobody has to go through. It really isn't.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the most degrading, because once you come in that courtroom still chained, I mean, you're talking about waist to cuff to ankle.
Yeah.
Your family's in the room, right? And you're in front of like 40 other people getting arraigned the same day. Some of them drug charges, some of them rape charges, some of them other things, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a federal court, right? In Miami. So I think it's the same one Trump had to go through. And so you're sitting there, and I mean, I made bail, so that wasn't a big issue. But it was just going through that process.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we got back to my hometown, and a week later, it hits the news. So now we're in 2018. I want to say going into July, August. And once it hit the news, I had prepared my partners and my practice ahead of time. I had told some close people ahead of time. That was rough, just to let them know what I was going through. And then, of course, learning more about it and what I had gone through. But once it hit the paper, that's when all broke loose, because sort of everything hit the fan at that time. Patients found out, community found out.
Small town.
I mean, your professional life at that point is pretty much over.
Yeah.
Because people are coming in now to an office looking at you as a provider who's been indicted for something. I mean, you still haven't been convicted, right? Because you've just been indicted. However, or allegedly, and of course, social media doesn't help.
Oh, no. And they say innocent until proven guilty, but in the eyes of our communities, you are guilty. Yeah.
And there's a reason the prosecution has a 97% conviction rate.
Yes.
They're not going really after people unless they think they can get them. I mean,
Yeah.
at 3%, I'd like to meet these 3% of the people that completely got off, because they feel like they have a strong enough case against you, right? And people know this, right?
Yes.
When you have an indictment, it's very hard to get out of it. I don't care how much money you have. I mean, maybe in some cases, but so once that hit, my partners started losing faith in what I was doing at the practice. Plus, and rightfully so, their reputation got hit. Right? Our practice now became known as the doctor who got indicted. You know, he's with that practice. Do we really want to go there? So my partners eventually said, look, we're going to have to let you go. And that was back in October of 2018. So I saw my last patient with that practice at the end of 2018. I didn't see anybody after that. And they let me go. My trial was set for, actually, let me take that back. The trial was set for October. It was that quick. From the time of July to October, they let me go about 3 weeks before my trial. Okay, so it was during that time period. I had to get my case together with my attorneys as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up hiring 3 attorneys, 2 out of Atlanta and then 1 out of Florida because we need to have a local representative in Florida as well.
Mm-hmm.
Had to, milk my 401k, ask family and some friends for some money to get this case paid off and all that, or at least pay the retainers and whatnot. Federal cases are not cheap.
No.
And when you're preparing for a trial, because I pled not guilty, federal trials are not cheap.
Yeah.
And they were anticipating this would go about a week, and we would need witnesses, we would need subject matter experts. I mean, when you're dealing with medical cases, you want to have people that are on your side that can vouch for what you've done. Even though I didn't deal with anything related to narcotics, pain drugs, no abuse, nothing related to where you would think in the classic terms of what you can get in trouble for. It wasn't a pain mill. It wasn't like I was prescribing opioids or these were creams. I mean, these are creams, pain creams, I mean, and I'll probably go into why this case became a case once we talk about the trial. So we prepared for the trial. It was all for October. We had everything ready to go. We got it all set up, got there. That Monday, they opened the day of the trial. I can't remember the date exactly. And they're going through the initial proceedings and everything. And then all of a sudden, the prosecutor stands up, the ASA. He stands up and he says, "Hey, Judge, I got to tell you something." I said, "We've got some evidence that's sitting in a warehouse that we've never presented to the defense." So the judge is like, "Well, is this Brady material? Is this something that can help him get off this case, And of course, the prosecutor's like, "Well, we don't feel it, but we have to disclose it in case it comes up during trial, and we don't want to be accused of not presenting it." So the judge actually said, "What exactly do you have that you did not give?" So apparently there were boxes and boxes of prescriptions that were written in my name, but I never wrote, that were forged. So apparently the company was forging prescriptions and then sending them to patients and then collecting on the insurances from that.
Wow.
So there were boxes of that. Not only me, but other doctors as well. Apparently there was a lot of those. They never gave that to us. So we had no idea of this during the discovery. So there could be a Brady violation, which could eventually throw this,
whole case
mistrial.
out.
Right. Could mistrial it. So they said that, and then so my attorneys asked for a mistrial and said, "This is all BS. This should have never, first of all, ever been a case." And the judge said, "Well, no, I'm going to allow it. I'm going to give you guys an extension. We're going to reschedule this trial to January of 2019. And we're going to go ahead and not have the trial, obviously, and you guys present the evidence, and then we'll go from there." So that was October of 18. We get the prescriptions, and yes, there were boxes and boxes of them from other doctors, myself, forged, just kind of automatic refills put on these. So, for example, if you ordered a drug, like I wrote your prescription, and let's say after 3 months, your prescription ran out, they would automatically sign my name or a refill, and you'd get it in the mail again, and then charge your insurance. Like you didn't care because you were getting the drug, you didn't have to pay anything for it because your insurance was covering it. Meanwhile, they were getting the reimbursement. Okay, so anyway, that is why we ended up postponing the case until January. And the trial was rescheduled till then, and then we had the trial in January, actually. And we had to do everything all over again and bring all the witnesses. Obviously we had a bigger case then. We had more evidence to present and whatnot. So we went through the process. We actually had the trial in January of 2019. It was a 7-day, well, including the weekend. We didn't obviously go over the weekend, but we started on Monday. Friday, it went to the jury. Came back with a verdict the Monday after. So, and as we mentioned, the charges, the first one was a defraud. The other 3 were based on the monetary amounts. So they gave me the guilty on the defraud because they had to.
I don't understand that part of it.
Okay.
Why did they have to give you? Well, I know because of the other ones. They had to claim you guilty on that because of the other charges, right?
Right.
But how did they come up? What was the U.S. Attorney's case to imply or prove that you had in fact defrauded the government?
So what they were saying was that I was doing these speeches or doing these presentations not in the typical standard way that most pharmaceutical companies would, but I was doing it based on how this company would do it, and they were paying me this $5,000 fee not to really do those, but in essence of just writing prescriptions because I was one of their writers. And because I was writing those prescriptions, they were thinking I was getting induced with the $5,000 fee to keep using their drug.
Product.
We proved during trial that I used a lot of product from different companies, that these products were effective. I wasn't just writing them to write them. I mean, if they're going to work, why would I not write for them, right? I mean, if I wrote you a drug and it worked, a cream, pain cream out of all things, and it worked. Why would I not keep writing it for you or write it for another patient? So they were saying, well, you were just doing that because you wanted to make the company money. And you were getting paid this $5,000 fee, even though we don't feel like you were genuinely doing these presentations the way they should have been done. So they kept on presenting it that way. Now, the reason they did that is because that was the case with the other doctors that signed up under the same contract that I did. So during the trial, we found out that this company made somewhere north of $30 to $40 million altogether collectively. As I was telling you, my portion of that was $55,000 before taxes. So it was $38 after taxes, whatever the case may be. Some of these guys made off with millions. Like some of the doctors, they were getting paid 20% for every prescription that was reimbursed. So some of these creams were reimbursing anywhere between $5,000 to $15,000.
So I have to tell you, a guy used to work for me. It's coming back to me as you're telling this story. And he had reached out to all of us at the company that I work for because we had this certain insurance. And he was working under a chiropractor, I believe. And he was like prescribing a pain cream.
Yeah.
And the pain cream was like billing out the insurance company like $3,000 to $5,000, I think. And all of my, like, I never did it, but a lot of the people that work for me would go there and they're like, the cream actually works really well for pain. And so they're continuing to charge the insurance company. And come to find out, they bankrupted the insurance company that our company was using because it was a small insurance company on the West Coast, and they ended up getting indicted for this same type of thing, all behind this pain cream.
Yeah. So back, I want to say in 2014.
And it was in that time frame.
Between 14 and 16, they call it a pharmacy benefits manager, determines the pricing of what a drug will be reimbursed by insurance. So, for example, if you get a pill, this organization says, okay, you can bill the insurance company this amount and you'll get paid this amount. Well, some geniuses at some point said these creams are worth this much money, okay? And it could have been anywhere between $5,000 to $15,000. Now, these are either a pain cream or it could be a scar cream. It could be a cream for nerve pain for diabetics who experience a lot of burning and tingling pain. It could be a wound cream, right? For something like you have a wound that's not healing, or a dermatology issue, like skin issue. And these creams are all custom formulated for a patient. So they decided that they were going to reimburse a certain amount based on how custom it was and what sterilization process it goes through. And they decided it could be anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000. Now, when that comes out, people are going to abuse it. I mean, what I mean by that is there's these bad actors that are going to figure out a way to manipulate the system and make money off of this, and that's just the way it is. So I didn't know what they were reimbursing. All I knew is that they were doing well. The product was performing. And meanwhile, these companies were charging these insurance companies between $5,000 to $15,000, and they were getting paid on that. And then these doctors that were writing for it were getting paid 20% on each one of those prescriptions that they were writing. And that's where the whole case starts. So my whole agreement with them was just to speak for them on a monthly basis as far as contract. The other doctors had the same contract as me, but they were getting paid per prescription. And that's where the whole case got built.
Okay.
I was the last man on that totem pole. I wasn't in that initial group of friends, like the circle that they had, but they had already closed the loop on all of them. And this is when Trump and Jeff Sessions came out and they said, we're cracking down on healthcare and we're going to have the biggest healthcare crackdown on Medicare because there's so much fraud going on. And of course, at that time, that's when this was all hot and heavy, and that's when my name got into this thing. So anyway, that's where the case got built. And that's how they proved their case to say, even though he did a few of these things, he didn't do enough to warrant what he was getting paid. We feel like he was just doing that because he was writing the pain prescriptions and he was being enticed or induced to do that. But
there was no proof of any kickback other than the $5,000. So at what point did you ever, within your trial, and I know it was like 5 to 7 days, did you ever have that feeling of this? I'm going to prison?
Well, yeah, because I didn't think I was going to prison. I knew that this wasn't going my way. And the reason why is because, look, the government has limitless money to put their case together. Yeah. They can have fancy presentations. They can do, like they made it seem like I was texting these guys on an everyday basis to the point where they look like bubbles with my face.
Stop it.
Oh yeah. So there was my face and then the text and then there was his face and then a text. So it made it look like I was communicating like, hey, what's going on? And meanwhile, these communication threads were like once a month, once every 4 to 6 weeks. but they made it seem like we were communicating on a daily basis. And there were certainly some things in those texts that they manipulated to make it sound like, oh, I was in this whole thing the whole time, you know. And then unfortunately, when you look at a jury who are not medically in the medical field or medically knowledgeable, they're going to see it for black and white, right? They're going to look at it and say at face value and say, okay, he was texting, he was getting paid. We can see that he may not have been doing what he was supposed to be doing, so he's automatically guilty. And it's not going to take much to prove that, honestly.
Yeah.
And there was a point probably about third day into the case where I felt like, okay, this is not going how I want it to go. And my attorney first said, well, maybe you shouldn't take the stand. Let it play itself out. But then they said, well, no, you're fine. You can speak well. You can present your case. Let the jury hear your whole case. So they put me on the stand that last day, and I did it. You know, I had no problems because I knew what I was speaking.
You were being honest.
I was being honest. I was telling what I felt, and I also what I knew, and the decisions I made are based on the facts of what I knew. So I wasn't in any way worried about it. But these guys went down to even as far as pulling out my grades from med school. There was a class that was that I took called Medical Ethics and the Art of Doctoring. So one of the prosecutors asked, do you know what kind of grade you made in that? I said, I couldn't even tell you what I had for breakfast yesterday, let alone what grade I made from 20 years or whatever it was, 15 years ago. And of course he's like, well, you made a B-. I'm like, okay. I mean, they were just trying to prove that these are things that were sort of built upon each other as to what led me to do, I guess, what I did. And they kept on trying to twist those words into making me seem like I had planned all this, and I knew that this money was not going towards the education of what I wanted to do. Meanwhile, I had all this resume and experience built up from other companies. Don't mind all that. You know, this is all you just trying to make $5,000 a month. I always tell, and I said to them, I said, why would I sacrifice my whole career and my livelihood for $5,000 a month when I can get that in two surgeries that I do in my office on one day?
Yeah.
I mean, does that make sense to you? I mean, I get it. $5,000 is a lot of money. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. And for the average everyday person, that's great money.
But not for what you're doing.
Well, more importantly, what I could do two cases and get paid that.
Yeah.
So why am I risking traveling, taking time off of work, not seeing patients for that amount of money, and then putting myself in a bad spot where I could probably get in trouble for it?
Yeah.
Now, I can see where somebody who wasn't making that, doing those types of things, like they weren't lecturing, you know, maybe their practice wasn't doing well.
Struggling
They were struggling financially.
Yeah.
And then they put themselves in that position where $5,000 will make a big difference.
Yeah.
And $5,000 makes a big difference. Don't get me wrong. But if you look at the whole grand scheme of things, for me personally, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
And so they decided to write that off as greed. And this guy's just after his ego.
Yeah,
and
they're
I told
building
him,
your character at this point.
Yeah, of course, in front of the jury. And I told him, I said, absolutely, greed and ego took over. I said, I signed these things because I wanted to be known as a specialist. I wanted companies to call on me so I can speak for them. And obviously, as I built on my career, this is how you do it. You get to be known in the circle so that they call on you as a subject matter expert.
But that's not illegal.
Correct.
It's not illegal to do that.
It's not. So anyway, that's how the case got built, and that's how we went through the process. But when the jury hears it and it's presented a certain way and it's optically presented a certain way, there's not many ways you can actually get around that.
Yeah.
And probably by that fourth day, I kind of knew things were twisting enough to where there's some days I felt like that we had it, then there's some days I felt like I didn't. And then the worst part about it, the owner who had pled guilty and the business guy, the doctor, they testified against me.
Stop.
They pretty much just said, oh, he knew the whole thing. They got a reduction on their sentencing. They made an agreement with the prosecution that as long if you testify against him, tell him what you know. Obviously, they didn't say, well, we didn't tell them to say anything. They told them what they knew. They got, I think it was anywhere between 3 to 6 months off their time. So a jury sitting there hears all this. They're not going to obviously buy what you've got to tell them. And then they're looking at me as a physician who's obviously has made money, enough well-to-do from a family. This is not what, whatnot. They're not going to have that much empathy or sympathy at that point, which I understood.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that were sitting on the jury, I think there was a teacher, there was maybe a janitor. I mean, these people are not making that much money, right? So what is it to them in that way?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where the case went. Ended up becoming, what was it? I told you it was like guilty on 3 counts. And they took off 1 because they said that one, they realized the monetary situation was probably not completely his fault, but we're going to go ahead and just knock off 1 of those. There was some error in the way the jury instructions were given. The judge recognized that. What they had said was, even though you felt like he didn't deserve that money, no matter what, you have to give him that fraud charge in order to get that money added to it. And there was a lot of discrepancy and error in that, and I still don't understand it. I mean, I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around it. But anyway, we discovered that after the fact. So we got 3 to 4. They didn't remand me. They did let me go home. And I was to report back in 3 months for sentencing.
So what were the charges you were, like all of them? What were they actually?
So the first one was conspiracy to defraud the United States.
Okay.
That was the big one.
Yeah.
Okay. And that gives you anywhere between 0 to 5 years.
Yep.
Second one was the next 3 were based on monetary amounts. Because I made about $55,000, the buckets are between 5 and 15 per charge.
Okay.
So they gave me 3 of those. So altogether, they gave me guilty on the first one.
Okay.
Automatically made me guilty for the second and third, and they gave me not guilty for the fourth.
So was it conspiracy to defraud the government in this amount and in this amount? Was that what the next charges were? Like, what were the actual charges? Was it still like that, but with a...
So the other 3 charges were all just based on the amount of money I made, and it's tied to what I defrauded the government for.
Okay,
correct.
So conspiracy to defraud the government for $5,000,
correct,
$25,000. Okay.
So if I would have defrauded the government for, I don't know,
$2 million, you'd have had a bazillion. Okay.
So, and I should add to this, during the trial, you remember I told you how they found a bunch of prescriptions that were forged.
Yes.
They added that into my total monetary value. So once we've proved that wasn't the case, initially they held me to $1.2 million is what I defrauded the government.
Oh my gosh.
But once we removed all those forged prescriptions, it came down to like $200,000. All right. So ultimately it dropped down, which puts you in a different bucket.
Okay.
Anyway, that's probably one of the big reasons why they didn't charge me in that last charge and gave me a not guilty.
Okay.
So that was the whole case. And then sentencing was to happen 3 months afterwards.
Okay. So you go to sentencing and what actually, no, you leave. And what is...
Oh, God. It's family's a wreck. Obviously, I don't know what to do with myself. I mean, that's that thinking time, right? I mean, if you're processing, you're like, what am I going to do? My career's over. I mean, if I get the maximum amount, I mean, this could be anywhere between 5 to 15 years. You don't know what the judge is going to say. You think it's going to play in your favor. You're hoping, obviously, for probation only. You're hoping for, if nothing, a year and a day or something to get you out sooner, if at best. We did a lot of that. I did a lot of that self-processing and sort of reflecting and just talking through scenarios with family and just trying to figure out what the plans were going to be, preparing for the worst and the best. You do your PSI and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was that whole process of doing that for 3 months afterwards, getting all your letters together from your peers and your family and your professionals, and hoping that everybody's going to write you something positive, which they did. I had over 55 letters, so I wasn't concerned about that. And then also just trying to figure out what are you going to do with your life once this is all behind you. But I was trying to stay in the moment.
Yeah.
I was trying not to think that far ahead because I just didn't know what was going to happen before sentencing. So the sentencing was back in Miami again. That was in June of 19, or maybe it was end of May, early June, can't remember. And basically I read my statement. I was allowed to read my statement, and I was apologetic for making these decisions. And although I didn't accept that responsibility initially because I pled not guilty, I took responsibility of the decisions I made based on the knowledge and information that I had. And as I always tell people, you're not judged on what your intent was. You're judged on your actions.
Yeah.
And even though you've meant well, you thought you were doing the right thing, you took some actions that actually put you in a bad spot. And that is what I try to teach to people when I talk to them about my case.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time, though, seeing where your actions, because I hear you, right? And maybe that's the right thing to do, is say my actions put me in this situation. But did they? Because how did your actions in this situation, it was them that created the crime.
Well, so here's the thing, and I should mention this, and I didn't mean to interrupt, I should mention this. That contract that I signed, you remember I said I read only 3 pages?
Yes.
That came and bit me in the ass big time.
Okay.
And the reason why is because the last 10 pages of that contract stated out duties that I had to perform in order to get the money that I was getting paid.
Okay.
All right. So I apologize.
Okay.
For not
Now it's
mentioning
making
that.
sense.
So that contract, basically I said I had to go visit the site where the drugs were made. I had to go give a education seminar to all the staff members of the pharmacy, because I was the medical director of that company in regards to what I was representing for them.
Okay.
I didn't perform any of those duties. I didn't know I had to.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't, because I was thinking I was doing this no different than I did for other companies, right?
Yeah.
And they never came back to me because their intent was never to make me do that. They didn't care.
Yeah.
So they never said, hey, you didn't go do your checklist. You need to come visit the pharmacy. You need to go talk to our staff members. I had no idea. But those were all part of the duties. And then at the bottom of that it says, in order to get paid the stipend, you have to accomplish these.
Okay, and you didn't.
And I didn't. I mean, of course, after, during trial, I read the contract and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? I didn't, and that bit me big time.
Yeah.
Because during the trial, the prosecution went through different contracts with doctors and other companies and the things they had to do to get paid. And of course, I admittedly, openly in front of the jury said I didn't do any of those things. And that was my fault. And that was that's part of the intent of, I should say, that's part of the actions that led me to where it did.
Okay.
And that's pretty black and white. There's you're not going to get around that.
Yeah, there's no way around it. Okay. So how did you cope while you're waiting on sentencing? Like, I've been there. I know tons of people that have been there, and we all cope differently, but you're coming from a very straight-laced background.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different for you than someone that's coming from the streets or whatever, because they go back and cope in the way that got them in there in the first place typically, or they just are depressed. It just depends. But how did you cope?
I think I've always prided myself on compartmentalizing well, and trying to keep family members and friends from really feeling the I guess the weight of what's going on, and taking that upon myself. And I've always done that. I've always, no matter what it is, not just talking about this specifically. It could have been anything going on in the family situation or financial situation. I always kind of just held that in, and I took on the weight of that. And maybe that's not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Because eventually, at some point,
it's going to come up.
It'll come up.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of that processing during, and we'll talk about the camp time. But I coped quietly. I kept it sort of contained. I mean, obviously, I talked to family about what our possibilities are. This is what's going to happen. Hopefully, we're going to be in Montgomery, which is only an hour and change from home, so we'll be able to visit, et cetera, et cetera. So I try to keep everything positive of what could be made out of a bad situation, because that's all you can do. You can't go back now, right? So everything's been done. What's been done is done. Now you got to figure out, okay, you're here now. What can you do, and how can you put a positive spin on this to at least make the family feel like. I didn't want them to feel like I was suffering, because I knew they were suffering more than I was, right?
Yeah.
So how can I keep it positive to where, hey, you're going to be able to visit if I go to Montgomery, this and that, which is we ended up knowing that we were going to get Montgomery. So it all kind of made things more positive and better. And I guess that's the best answer I have. I think it was just keeping everything in myself. And I knew that if I had gone the other way and really just sort of did it in showing my true emotions of how I felt, it would have brought everybody down. So
did you ever have just a breakdown moment by yourself?
I had. Yeah. I have. And I think that really did hit me more when I was in Montgomery than before Montgomery, because I didn't know what I was looking at.
Yeah. So you go to court to get sentenced.
Go to court to get sentenced, and the judge looked at me and, of course, heard my statement. We tried again to just talk to the judge about probation and some other options, and she basically just sat there, kind of shook her head, and she said, look, I know you had the right intentions, and I really hate to do this, but unfortunately doctors and healthcare professionals are very hard to catch when they've been put into this type of situation, and we have to make an example out of this. And so at that point I knew I was going to get sentenced, what it was going to be. And then she said, well, we're going to go ahead and give you 36 months and 3 years probation, and you have to pay back your restitution of $55,000, which is what you earned. That's it. You're not responsible for anything else.
And who do you pay that back to? The government?
Yeah.
So I just cannot.
Yeah, so the government got paid that back.
So the government profits off of your $55,000 that never came from them, and they're also profiting off of your incarceration.
Mind you, I paid taxes on that, so they got double the profit. Yeah, so they profited off that because, when you're incarcerated, you're property of the government, right? So, so I paid that. So I paid that back well before I got sentenced. But she gave me 36 months in a camp versus going to anywhere else, which is what we had requested.
Right.
And we requested Montgomery, which is only an hour and change from us, from Columbus. So it was a lot easier for family to come visit. And I was to report July 19th, 2019. And that's where we started.
So you walk in.
Yeah, it's
that door closes behind you.
Yeah.
What was your initial thought?
So Montgomery is an Air Force base.
Okay.
It's Maxwell Air Force Base, and it used to be a military training school.
Okay.
Sort of like a boot camp.
Okay.
So it's set up like dorms, and it's set up like a boot camp. You have a center area that's sort of like the forum and atrium, whatever, and then you have your quote unquote dorms, right? 3 buildings, and then you have behind there the rec field, which has a full softball field, tennis courts, track.
You're at Club Fed.
I mean, it's sand volleyball court,
Yes.
wall ball court. I mean, you're talking. I had it better than probably most people going
Yeah.
to something like this, right? But you don't know that when you first walk in there, and
Yeah.
you're put in this holding cell, and of course they go through everything, and if you know what I mean by that. And
strip you down.
they go through the whole
spray you
process.
last,
They don't treat
splash
you any
spray.
different than anybody
Yeah.
else, right?
Yeah.
And they give you your bedding, and they send you about your way, and you get assigned where you go. And that was when it first really hit me.
Yeah.
You asked when you broke down. That's probably when it really hit me.
Yeah.
It was a Friday. No, was it a Friday? July 9th. I think it was a Friday because I knew commissary wasn't going to open until next week because they had told me that. And I also knew that I wasn't going to get anything clothing-wise until next week because everything was closed over the weekend. So anyway, that was when it all kind of just hit me. And
Yeah.
that's when it really just took the weight of everything and just sort of had to have that. But I had met some people there. A lot of professionals were in there. Obviously when you're in there, you're nothing else outside of that really exists.
Well, and they knew when you walked in, you were white collar crime.
Of course.
I mean, let's keep it real.
Of course. And in that camp, there were a lot of white collar people.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was doctors, there was lawyers,
Yeah.
accountants, and you're going to find your own, right? I mean, you're going to
Yeah.
find, and a lot of those guys have stepped down. They're coming from highs to lows, and they're
Yeah.
ready to get back out in the world. So they're all trying to behave.
They
and
just wanna go
They
home.
just want to go home.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of get in your routine. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That. It's all about routine. It's all about finding your car and just making sure that you have the people that you hang out with and talk to and walk the track with and you just kind of go through your routine. So I started at that point within about a month in after I got used to it. I joke because when I give speeches to med students, my specialty was diabetics. Diabetics end up having nasty infections in their foot when they have bad blood sugars, not controlled, bacterial infections, and their foots get infected. Their feet get infected. They get gangrene and nasty foul odors come out. So my job is to take them in the operating room, clean them out.
Yeah.
So I joke and I say, a month ago I was cleaning shit out of a foot, and now I'm cleaning shit out of a toilet because that was my job for the first 3 months was cleaning the restrooms.
Yeah.
That's the first thing they hand you is a mop, a bucket, and cleaning supplies.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're starting, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to the library and starting to be the librarian the first day or whatever. So within 3 months, or for the first 3 months, that's what I was doing, basically. And that wasn't fun, it's part of it, but you do what you got to do. By the way, I'm vegetarian, right? So on top of that, I'm having to deal with that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So that was interesting, but they do now have good accommodations for people with dietary issues and restrictions. So they had like tofu almost every day of the week. I mean, it was just crazy.
How was the tofu
it
in
wasn't
prison?
bad. The tofu takes on the taste of whatever you cook it in, right?
Yes.
And so
did they know how to season it though?
Yeah, and you kind of add your own little if you have to
Yeah.
from the commissary, right? And you just
Yeah.
do what you got to do. But I did lose weight, obviously, and I was not obviously eating the junk that I was eating on the outside. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it is what it is. You make do, you adapt, you live, and that's what you do. But 3 months in, I was trying to find a job outside of the toilets and getting into education.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to weasel my way into working for the library education department to teach inmates.
Okay.
So I started developing classes. I was in charge of scheduling classes and actually announcing what classes are coming out and who's teaching what and all that stuff, and giving people credit for good time, or I forget what they called it then, but if somebody took a class, you get credit towards it, and they want to have a certain amount every month, and it goes towards some good time credit and that type of thing. So I did that for about 2 months, and now we're entering into COVID.
Lockdown.
So end of 19 December, the federal system in Maxwell got COVID, and it was bad. And we got it probably before the world got it. I mean, because it doesn't take much. I mean, you literally have one person get it, and then all of a sudden, next person. And the cleaning supplies are subpar at best. They're not anything, that you want to be able to clean your own house with. So you're just kind of dealing with what you have. But everybody got it. I lost my sense of taste for about 2 weeks. I had those symptoms that everybody else had. Nobody knew what to expect. I mean, it was so new, right?
Yeah.
We were all in lockdown. Family and friends couldn't come visit.
Yeah.
When we really went into it in January, February of 20,
Yep.
I mean, it was bad. I mean, we were just literally confined. Like, there was no rec time. I mean, even meals were structured 5 feet apart, and I mean, everything was. They were trying to do it as best as they could. Cleaning supplies were at a very low as far as the amount we had. We didn't have enough as far as bathrooms, as far as door handles. So we were literally cleaning stuff with just soap and water. I mean, and again, with COVID, you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
People were getting sick. They were getting released to hospitals. I mean, there was a couple people that got really sick, and I don't even know what happened to them, but they ended up getting shipped out.
Yeah.
And there were certain federal facilities that only treated inmates that had COVID. So we went through all of 20 pretty much just dealing with COVID. And then as restrictions got lifted, then we ended up getting more rec time and things loosened up, but it was never gone.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm still trying to apply to see if I can get out on good time, or if there are any other ways I can serve the rest of my time at home because of COVID and whatnot. Everybody was trying to do these different things, but we were still trying to teach classes through that whole 2020 year time period.
Mm-hmm.
They started allowing visitation back, I want to say after the summer of 2020, and it was behind glass windows and things like that. And it was a very short amount of time period. And so I didn't see the family for about 9 months. And then eventually we were able to do some limited visits. Then towards the end of 2020, the restrictions started getting better. And then they started saying, okay, we're going to probably let some inmates go home because COVID's not gone yet. We're getting overcrowded. There's still some issues of people getting sick. And my name came up in February of 21. And they ended up saying, okay, you can serve out the rest at a halfway house.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out that I didn't have to go to the halfway house. They would just let me go home with an ankle monitor. So
great.
That's where we were at then at that point. But the whole time that I was in there, I tell you, I did a lot of self-reflection, reading. I mean, you meet people and they're interesting characters, but well-educated people. You hear about other people's cases. You hear about how other people, their journey, what they've gone through, where they're at in their point in life with their families, with their case. How are they trying to appeal their case? My case, we appealed. Mm-hmm. I went up to the Supreme Court. Went up to the appeals appellate court. They did what's called an en banc review because they were still kind of talking about the jury instructions, how there was an error in it. Mm-hmm. I had the American Medical Association write a letter for me to support my case, but still, 2 judges still said no. We still think the jury instructions, even though there was error, the government proved their point enough to where we're not going to overturn it. So they kept it. And then my appellate attorney said, well, if you want, we can take this to the Supreme Court. I'm like, with what money?
Right.
I mean, these things are not cheap.
Yeah.
At that point, just to take it to the appellate was $75,000.
Oh my goodness.
So I can't imagine what it would cost to take it to the Supreme.
Yeah.
And even then, like, what are your chances, right?
Yeah.
So by that time I would have already been home because it wouldn't have made a difference because I knew that it was towards the end of where I was at. So all in all, I ended up serving 21 months at Maxwell, 20 months really to be exact. They released me to the halfway house. Halfway house said, you don't need to stay here. You can go home with an ankle monitor. And I ended up having the ankle monitor on as long as I had some sort of a job. Mm-hmm. So there within lies the next challenge. But I got to tell you, going back, my community welcomed me with open arms. Friends, colleagues, family. I mean, what can we do? How can we help? Can we get you a job? So I started working for one of my doctors who owns properties and started managing real estate for him. So I learned how to manage real estate, which I didn't do before. Did that for my halfway house requirement period. And once that expired, meaning they were like, okay, you're good to go. We're releasing you. He said, do you still want to do this? I'm like, not really, but if you need help. And he goes, well, I don't really need the help. I was just kind of helping you. And I said, well, let's just go ahead and not do it anymore. I joined a company called Prison Professors, which is a sort of a inmate advocate education type of thing, a charity organization. And I started creating content for inmates in California. We created an app that was on the tablets for inmates to be able to get any sort of material that they wanted to read and that type of thing. And I did that. And I did their social media. So I learned how to do social media. I learned how to post. I learned how to use Facebook and Instagram and things like that, which meaning, I knew how to use those, but I mean in the sense of posting content, that type of thing. And then I did that for about 3 or 4 months. And then they said, okay, well, they were really more about helping people transition and get out, right?
Yeah.
And then after some point, I didn't really need them anymore, and they didn't need me, so we kind of dissolved that. And so then I went into the healthcare business again, and I started managing for a wellness company. Mm-hmm. Did that for a little while, and then I worked for a doctor, helped her do logistics in her office. I mean, I picked up all these soft skills, and I really learned how to sort of reinvent myself.
Yeah.
I had lost my license, and we actually surrendered my license before I went to Montgomery because we knew that if I didn't do that, they were going to revoke it permanently. Mm-hmm. So my attorney said, your best option is to voluntarily surrender it, and then maybe you'll get it back. In the meantime, while I was out doing these types of jobs, I was creating a sort of a program about what I went through with my experiences and then pitching it out to med schools, to conferences to be able to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Take it to risk management conferences like insurance companies and that type of thing, malpractice providers for doctors. So I can speak at their conferences to talk to other doctors and teach them about my experience. So collectively, all these things that I was doing, the board looked at what I was doing. They saw that I was obviously doing the right things. They decided to give me my license back. So I was able to get my license back. So I'm happy to say I do have my Georgia state license, and now it's just a matter of what my next steps are. Even though I have it back, the biggest challenge is still getting on a lot of these insurance companies and hospital privileges and that type of thing. So, so in the meantime, I'm working with the regenerative medicine company. I'm helping them out with some of their stem cell type stuff. And and that's kind of where I'm at. And now I'm just continuing to try to educate and let people know about what I went through. And hopefully, I always say if one doctor can learn from what I've done, it's worth it, you know?
Yeah.
Then everything that I've gone through is worth it. And I'm happy to give out my email and phone number for anybody that wants to talk more about this. In fact, after I got out, a lot of my attorney started dealing with a lot of healthcare providers with cases, and a lot of these people are calling me for advice because they just want to know what my experience is like. So it's been very rewarding in that way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You know, I think that it's very important to talk about kind of the mind and the perspective, because you could have been angry. I mean, even down to like having to pay the $55,000 restitution to the government. It was never their money to start with,
right.
You know, like there could have been so many different ways that you viewed this situation or handled it, but you did it in a way that served your highest good.
Yeah.
And I know that when we're caught up in these type of situations, it doesn't always play out that way because our emotions take over. And for you were able to weather the storm and do it in a way that was empowering, not just for you, but for your family. So I definitely commend you for that.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask, as we're getting ready to close, is there a message that you would like to send out to maybe the doctors that are watching this, or the young professionals that are looking to get into that field, or just anyone in general? What would your message be?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I do feel like mindset was a huge part of this. Mm-hmm. And any physician or healthcare provider that unfortunately finds himself in this predicament or in this situation, I think it's important you talk to somebody that's gone through it, mm-hmm. not people that haven't.
Yeah.
You need to find another healthcare provider that's gone through it, that's willing to share their story, their experience. I'm helping other people right now that I know that are currently going through stuff right now. Mm. And it's nice when you can talk about common experiences, because as you know, if you've not gone through this, nobody can really relate to you.
Yeah.
But that helps establish your mindset. So what I suggest, if anybody's going through this right now, please find people that have gone through it. I'll be happy to give my information, and also the biggest advice I can give is get an attorney and have them present whenever you put yourself in this situation, because they can save you at the end of the day. My biggest mistake was when I first got investigated, I didn't have an attorney present. And some of those things that I said during that investigation interview came back to kind of bite me, but that wasn't like, hey, closed case, but it was definitely something that I wish I would have had an attorney present for.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking, even though you're like, hey, I didn't do anything wrong, you know, I had good intentions, I'll be happy to share all the information. Don't.
Yeah, because it's still the government, and their job is to get a guilty verdict no matter what. They're
going to come out, be your best friend, so they can get you to say information, talk to you about, they're going to act like you're the good guy in all this, you're going to be the hero. Mm-hmm. And no matter how you perceive that, I guarantee you they're just trying to see what they can get out of you.
Yes.
And then use it against you if they can.
Yes.
So one, if you ever find yourself in that, find an attorney or say, I cannot say anything else to you.
Yes.
Let me get an attorney present, then we can have this discussion. And then two, if you do end up getting indicted, it's not the end. Of course, it is going to be traumatic, but it's not going to be the end of your career or your life.
Yeah.
it's something that you can't let that past define you, and you just got to find ways to work through it. Whether you get convicted or you get off, you're still going to have that ugly scarlet letter attached to you in some way, some fashion. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It never goes away. Like every application that I apply for, anywhere I go now, and anything that I do, it's always going to be the shadow. And unfortunately, I have to carry that with me. But excuse me. But I think that you have to understand that that's okay. Accept it, and don't try to deny it, because that's just going to put you in a deeper negative mindset than what you already are. Yes.
So, do you think that the sentence ever truly ends?
No, and really, it doesn't end. But it also, sometimes I think the sentence is worse for the family than it is for the individual.
Yeah.
Like your kids, your family, they have to go through that. I mean, you're in a situation where you're in a behind the fence, confined everyday life. Your meals are provided, your bedding's provided. Yeah, you have to do a little bit of work here and there for 25 cents an hour or whatever it is. But they're the ones struggling on the outside, having to deal with the real world, pay the bills, get the kids to school, do whatever they got to do to keep the world spinning. Whereas you're just sort of in your little microcosm, right? So then once you get out, that sentence still continues.
Yeah.
Maybe not as controlling as it was, because that's the biggest thing, is losing that freedom. That sense of control is what you never want to lose. But everything that comes tied to it, the stigma, it carries with you.
Yeah.
But if you can accept that and then kind of move forward, I know people that have been put in these circumstances and they try to bury it under the rug. Mm-hmm. It's hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard.
So tell the people how to get in contact with you.
Sure. You can email me at Alap, ALAPSHAHDPM. That's dog, Paul, Mary @gmail.com. Or you feel free to send me a text at 706-505-5885. I'll be happy to respond back in regards to any advice that I can offer for anybody going through this. Or if they find themselves in a situation, they just need suggestions on what to do with an attorney. There are some attorneys now that I know that can actually provide better guidance than just going and opening Yellow Pages. We don't use Yellow Pages anymore, but you know what I mean. Going to Google and just kind of putting a name in and saying, hey, I need a healthcare attorney.
Yeah.
I've got some resources now that actually can provide them better guidance and maybe give them a better case and a better opportunity to fight what they're going through.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a very interesting story, and I'm so proud that you are doing the things that you're doing, as a result, building kind of a new lane for yourself. That's admirable, and I feel sure that you're going to have plenty of people reach out to you, because this is becoming a more common thing, it seems like, especially in the medical, industry. You don't hear about these kind of stories, right, because the doctors, as I've heard, don't like to speak on it. Right. They don't want to talk about it. So thank you for being brave enough to come on and share your story.
Thank you.
And to everybody that is watching, we will link his information in also down below. It'll be in our description. It'll also appear on the screen as well as you guys are watching. So if you would like to get in touch with Dr. Shah, please reach out to him. Thank you so much for being our guest today. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share for more content like this on the Fenced In Podcast with Jennifer Rogers. And one last final thought: no darkness can outshine the light within.